The last round of the Rugby Championship has taken place this weekend, and the All Blacks have their rematch up against the Wallabies. This one taking place in Australia, and the question is, are we going to see Scott Robertson go a bit more experimental now, or is it still the stock standard team that we have seen throughout the rest of the competition? In this video, I'm going to be giving my All Blacks side that I would like to see take on the Wallabies. Now, I've made a few changes compared to the lineup that we did see at Eden Park, but hopefully with this side that I have selected, we can sort out that little middle patch of the game where New Zealand have been struggling throughout the rest of the competition. But jumping straight into it, in the front row, this is where I would make two changes compared to what we saw at Eden Park. Number 1, Mighty Williams. Number 2, Cody Taylor. And number 3, Fletcher Null. Now, there have been a couple injury reports from the All Blacks, one of which is about Ethan de Groot. He did fail his HIA and is not going to be playing in this game due to concussion protocols. Does mean that they need the new loose head prop, and I do believe the best bet is to go with the man who has been playing off the bench, that being Mighty Williams. I also would like to add Fletcher Null into that front row, mainly because we did see Tyrell Lomax with a bit of a hand injury, it looked like, in that last contest, and the last thing that the All Blacks want is for him to end up injured again. So Fletcher Null, the fact that he's been scrummaging with Mighty Williams, I think would make this an easy switch. Then of course you've still got Cody Taylor, so all three Crusaders in the front row. And at this matchup, moving on to the locking duo. For myself, I would like to see Patrick Tuipulotu back in that number 4 jersey, and number 5, Fabian Holland. Little bit of a similar reason to Lomax here for the reasons behind not picking Tupavai. Did look like he had a little bit of a leg injury he was dealing with in the last contest. There is absolutely no point risking him in this match when November is just around the corner. Tuipulotu and Fabian Holland actually work very nicely together in one of the matches up against the French, so I could see them doing that again. And it would also be nice to see a few more starting minutes for Patrick Tuipulotu. I'm not sure of the length of Scott Barrett's shoulder injury. For all we know, he might be back at Optus Stadium. We know how much the Barretts enjoy playing at Optus, and more so sitting on the sideline after a card. But with the fact that Ardie Savea captained the side last week, I could see him doing it again here, and that would mean that Tuipulotu take on that number 4 jersey. Fabian Holland, he's been sharp, whether he's in the starting lineup or off the bench, so it would be great to see him get a few more minutes here up against the Australians. In the loose forward trio, this is where I would go unchanged from what we saw last week. Simon Parker slotting in as the number 6, Ardie Savea 7, and Wallace Satiti as the number 8. Now, there is a chance if Scott Robertson does rotate his side, we could see someone like a Summer Penny Finau, or maybe a Luke Jacobson. Peter Larkai even could find himself in the starting side. But I do think if this is what we're going to see in the loose forward trio heading into November, they do need more time together as a unit, and this is the perfect opportunity when you're facing up against Tom Hooper, Fraser McWright, and Harry Wilson. They are going to test that skill set of the loose forward trio, and they are just phenomenal players. You do have to be on your A game, and I do think this loose forward trio can do just that in the contest. But moving on to the 9-10 combination, this is where we will see a change. It has been announced that Beauden Barrett unavailable for this match due to his shoulder injury. Now, there is no return date for Beauden Barrett as of yet, but from what I read, it's looking anywhere between 2 weeks and 12. Now, 12 would take him out for the rest of this year. 2 weeks would mean that he's back for November and raring to go yet again, but for now, you do need a change in their number 10 jersey. Number 9, I'm not changing. After Eden Park, Cam Roigard back in the starting side. Man, did he make a difference for this All Blacks team. He was getting them on the front foot. He scored himself 2 tries and just seemed to be so much more well-rounded than what we have been seeing lately for the All Blacks in that 9 jersey. He is such a welcome change, and they definitely will not want to lose him in this contest, which is why maybe Razor may look to use him off the bench in his actual lineup. But for me, I'm starting Roigard, and I'm partnering him with Damian McKenzie in that number 10 jersey. I was extremely tempted to put Ruben Love as the starting first 5, but it just felt rough to not give McKenzie the starting jersey after the injury of Barrett. But I do think that he would be the next best option into that 10 jersey. He's had quite a few minutes throughout this year already. He knows what this side is expecting. He knows what Scott Robertson wants to see from that 10 role. And I do think anyone who partners with Cam Roigard in that 9-10 channel is going to have a pretty solid performance out there at Optus Stadium. Moving on to the midfield. This is where it does get tricky, and I've got a little bit of strategy behind it. Now, last week at Eden Park, I decided I wanted to see a change in that midfield combination. I went with Quinn Tupaia and Rieko Ioane. Now, that is not what Scott Robertson selected. In fact, he went with the stock standard Jordie Barrett, Billy Proctor combo. It still hasn't convinced everyone at this point in time. Proctor giving away 3 penalties throughout that last contest up against the Aussies. Jordie Barrett, once again, having a solid enough game, actually did extremely well under the high ball, which hasn't helped Scott Robertson in the argument people are giving that Jordie Barrett should be playing 15 for the ABs. But for myself, I've made one change in this centre pairing. I would go with Quintupai, number 12. What he was able to do off the bench, I thought was very strong. Definitely because early on, when he first made his way onto the field, he actually had 1 or 2 little errors. And that was a type of moment that either was going to make him go into his shell a little bit, or it was going to motivate him to try that little bit harder and just find his feet. And it was the second option that Quintupai decided. He had some great runs, including a really nice run where the All Blacks were drifting sideways. Quintupai received the pass, just straightened through the gap. That was actually Cam Roygaard's second try. So I do like the way that he's been playing, and I would partner him with Billy Proctor in the midfield, only because that is a midfield combo we haven't actually seen together as of yet for the All Blacks in the starting lineup. Now, Quintupai, he did start one of the matches up against the French. That was actually the 3rd test, but in the number 13 jersey, it was Anton Leonard-Brown. Could this Quintupai-Billy Proctor combination be a little bit of a hidden gem for the All Blacks that they just haven't discovered yet? That's my big question, so that is why I would try it in this game. Like I mentioned, the Rugby Championship, it is still to a certain extent on the line, but if South Africa win their game up against Argentina, they will take out the title. So this is the game for me that you can still go with a pretty strong looking lineup while making a couple little switches. See whether or not there is something else that works better heading into those November internationals. As well, in the back 3, number 11, if he is match fit, I would have Caleb Clark yet again. Now, the big concern is that ankle injury. Near the end of the contest, he was limping a little bit and eventually had to make his way off of the field for Quintupai. But if Clark is okay, I would definitely start him out on that left wing side again. He was great early on in the game, managed to get himself the quick fire try after hearing his dad sing the national anthem. And I'll be honest, I don't think Caleb Clark was as busy as some were hoping for, but he still did pretty much everything right out on his wing. The Australians, they were targeting the other side of the field when it came to trying to score, but I would definitely have him starting. And if he is unavailable due to injury, I think I'd just go with the straight. I do think maybe you just go with Rieko Ioane, although there is also the option, if you want to get really fancy, you can put Leroy Carter back to the left, then you move Will Jordan to the right, then you move Ruben Love to number 15. If you want to keep people almost playing in the same position that they were last week, you just put Rieko out there on the left, but Clark would be my starting 11. Number 14, I would once again go with Leroy Carter. When you look at a player who hasn't had a lot of game time for New Zealand, Carter has done exactly what has been expected of him. A young player looking to make an impact. It's a bit similar to what we saw for Wallace Satiti in last season when he wasn't really getting a huge amount of minutes. It was due to an injury that he got brought in, and then he won Breakthrough Player of the Year for the All Blacks. So Leroy Carter, I'm not saying he's going to get that award, but he has certainly started his All Blacks career in the right direction, and I do think he's done enough to get himself picked in the November internationals coming up soon as well. Will Jordan, he would be my number 15. Once again, Ruben Love, I would have loved to put him somewhere in the starting side, but I also didn't want to change too much, seeing as the All Blacks at times up against Australia, they did look solid. There is still that patch between 20 minutes and about 70 where the All Blacks weren't really finding their rhythm throughout the first test. But jumping into the bench, I've actually made a few changes compared to what we did see in the last contest. Number 16, Samisoni Taukei'aho. I still feel he is the best option to bring off the bench. Brodie McAllister, I don't see him staying in the squad for November. I do think that either Asafo Moore or maybe George Bell may take Brodie McAllister's spot. I know that Razor did initially select him, but then he hasn't really played him too often. Maybe this is the game that we could see him actually get a bit of a crack. Number 17, I would go with Ollie Norris. And number 18, Pasilio Tosi. Now, Tyrell Lomax, if he has picked up any sort of little injury, there is no need to play him in this matchup. And this is also a combination we've already seen New Zealand use throughout this year. When Tyrell Lomax and Tamaiti Williams were both injured, this is the combo that we got to see make their way off the bench. And let's be honest, for such a young duo in their All Blacks career, it was actually pretty solid. New Zealand were closing out games pretty well up against the French, and I do think that Norris and Tossie, if you're looking at maybe not 2027's Rugby World Cup, but 2031, that could be your starting propping duo. So you might as well get them some minutes here and slowly just keep on developing them. They'll probably go up against Alan Alatoa as well as Angus Bell, so that's a nice challenge. Give them a bit of work as they haven't really had a lot of minutes throughout this whole Rugby Championship. Number 19, I would go with Tupovai, so I still got him off the bench, mainly because I don't know who else they would go with in that 19 jersey. You have got the option of Scott Barrett if he is all right after a shoulder injury, although I don't see a way that they don't start him if he doesn't still have his injury. But I would go with Tupovai just because of that versatility, being able to play in the locking duo, as well as the number 6. Number 20, I would give it to Peter Lakai again. I thought he had a couple decent moments off of the bench. He is versatile as well, can slot in anywhere in that loose forward trio, and he is another guy that I do think heading into the future could be a very handy player for the ABs. Number 21, Cortez Ratama. Didn't get a massive amount of game time because of how well Roygar played at Eden Park, but he will still want to get a few more minutes after coming back from his own injury not too long ago. Number 22, Ruben Love. I think with the fact that Beauden Barrett is injured, if we don't see Ruben Love somewhere across this 23-man side, that's not good. He should be in there somewhere. He's got versatility. He can play at 10 or 15. He's actually almost spent more time out on the wing for the All Blacks than he has in either of his specialist positions, but he's got a lot of talent. He's good under the high ball. He's got the goal kicking if you do need it. So there is plenty that Ruben Love can bring into this All Blacks side. And then number 23, this is where I would play Jordie Barrett, so I'm not completely dropping him from the side. I actually really like Barrett off the bench. Definitely if the game is close. Similar to what we saw in the third test match up against the French. That is actually when we saw Quintupai, Anton Leonard-Brown as the starting duo. And then we did see Jordie Barrett make his way off the bench, completely turn that game around. And it did help the All Blacks get themselves that victory. Now, there may be some who question the fact that I've got, in a way, 2 fullbacks off of my bench and not a lot of wing cover. But if there was an injury on the wing, Will Jordan can slot straight back out there. And there's plenty of players who could stick in that 15 jersey. So I actually think that Ruben Love and Jordie Barrett, even though on paper they seem like they only cover a couple positions, there is still enough versatility for this side that I think they would be just fine if there was an injury or two. But that is my All Blacks side that I would love to see take to the field for this match of the Rugby Championship. It is the last round, like I said. New Zealand need a bonus point win. And I do feel like with this side, that would certainly be a possibility. Scott Robertson, he will be announcing his side on Thursday. So, of course, when that is announced, we will let you know. And also, a little bit later on in the week, we will do our Scott Robertson prediction, what changes we expect to see from Razor for the match as well. But do let me know who you guys would have in your All Blacks starting lineup and reserves. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you all for the next one.